to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid-lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast, and oh my gosh, I hit it probably almost perfect, right on the nose at 1800 hours. For those of you who are not into 24-hour time, that would be 6 p.m. here on the East Coast. Or, sorry, West Coast. What am I saying? Holy crap. All right. A little discombobulated. Just a tiny bit. Not a lot. All right. So we've had an interesting week. We've had a lot of things that have come out and have occurred throughout the week. I've got a couple of those tonight, but I have some announcements to make first. So #1 is next Saturday, June 18th. There will be no live. And the reason being is because I am producing my daughter's video record of her dance troops recital. So they do this thing every year, and they have, you know, all the parents, and they show off their dances, and they do some of the competitive dances and those kinds of things. And one of the things that they like to do is they like to put together a keepsake memento video. I've done it in the past before, and they asked me to come back this year or to come back. I don't remember if I did it last year or the year before, but anyway, doesn't matter. They have asked me to come back and produce it again. And so that's what I will be doing next Saturday. So June 18th, there will be no broadcast. And the reason, of course, is because the show is going to be, you know, crossing with my being at the location doing the production. So, but Wednesday, I will be broadcasting on Wednesday. No change to that at this point. If it does change, I will let you know. I'll let everybody know through the social media, but otherwise, no broadcast next week, the 18th. All right. Next thing is I'm trying a new, whiskey tonight, and tonight's, liquor of choice is Proper 12. It is a new Irish, that was my wife stopped by, and I don't know what they call the person who like picks the alcohols. I know in wine, it's the sommelier. At least I think I pronounced it correctly. But in terms of the whiskeys and other hard alcohols, I don't know what they're called. But whoever it is the person that stocked it. They recommended it, and I tried it earlier without ice and without it being cold, and it was just a tiny bit harsh, as most whiskeys are when they're not cold. But it actually works quite well over ice. And so that's what I'm drinking here tonight is again, the Proper 12. It is an Irish whiskey. I seem to favor those. And so that's what we're dealing with. And it's a good one. I like it over ice. I'm not quite sure it'll usurp my usual Black Barrel or Red Breast just yet, but it is a good one. If you happen to give it a try, if you happen to like it, like whiskeys, go ahead and give it a shot. See what you got. Okay. So I haven't done a spot for one of my affiliates. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And this will be, it's pretty important, actually. It's pretty important, especially with the whole gun control thing coming up. And that is the National Concealed Carry Association. Okay. If you honor and value our God-given right to self-defense by owning a firearm and would appreciate joining a community of like-minded individuals who welcome all firearm owners of all experience levels, then you should consider joining the NCCA. The National Concealed Carry Association NCCA, exists to serve the Second Amendment community by providing a nationwide network of Second Amendment advocates, offer elite self-defense and concealed carry training from the nation's top instructors, and provide rock-bottom prices on the best selection of gear and accessories. NCCA members enjoy shopping thousands of products with zero dealer markup, unlimited free shipping, and keep more money in their pockets with zero credit card processing fees. The NCCA encourages safe, responsible concealed carry and celebrates those who are brave enough to protect not only themselves, but their families and their communities. If this sounds good to you, visit National Concealed Carry Association, all lowercase, all one word, .com to join today. As a special bonus, use my affiliate link, ncca.refr.cc/Rick, RICK02, to receive a code for 10% off any purchase at nationalconcealedcarryassociation.com. Once again, use my affiliate link, ncca.refr.cc/Rick, RICK02, and receive a code for 10% off your purchase at nationalconcealedcarryassociation.com. Visit nationalconcealedcarryassociation.com, again, all lowercase, all one word, nationalconcealedcarryassociation.com to find out more today. And I thank them for allowing me to be a brand ambassador and affiliate. Okay. And by the way, they don't care what your skin color is, contrary to Joy Behar's popular belief that she seems to think that if African Americans or black people, as she put it, get guns, that gun laws will change because of it. Okay, that's a whole bunch of crap. I don't know where the hell she got that. Honestly, she just proved what I think a lot of us have said multiple times, in the fact that, you know, the left seems to be the more racist than the conservative right actually is. They seem to say it in deed, and a lot of it, the times it comes out as a kind of a soft bigotry sort of thing. I don't know how she got away with it. Honestly, I don't know how she's still even on The View. There's probably going to be some kind of blowback from that, I'm guessing. But regardless, it just demonstrates their level of moronic stupidity that they have in believing that if more persons of color have guns, that all of a sudden the guns laws will change. This is kind of off topic for tonight, but you know, the fact of the matter is that persons of color and women have been the biggest growing purchaser of firearms in the last couple of years, especially. And, you know, a lot of that has to deal with, believe it or not, rising crime and light sentences on people. So, you know, they've made their bed, they're living in it, and that's just kind of the way it is. So I you know, sometimes I keep asking myself, is there no level of stupidity that these people will go to, and somebody has to go and just, you know, jump in, but whatever. All right. So episode 106, which was the Goodbye Josh episode, that has become my highest viewed video on YouTube. Not quite yet on Rumble. I'm sure it's on its way, though, because it contains a very funny segment toward the end that came from the Mark K Show. I love the Mark K Show. I love those guys. And, you know, it is what it is. Okay, so Buddy is telling me to have another sip. I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Kind of got to slow down my talk taking. All right. Okay. Next thing that I'm going to do for tonight is going to read, of course, from the American Patriots Almanac. And this is for tonight's On This Day in American History. Now, I know that today is June 11th, and I am going to read June 11th's page in this book. But I also wanted to bring attention to yesterday being the birthday of the United States Army. June 10th, 1775 was when they claimed their birthday. The Marine Corps has their birthday on November 10th, 1776 is their birthday. So keep that in mind when you're coming around to Veterans Day. If you happen to know a Marine, go ahead and wish him happy birthday on the 10th of November. All right. So tonight, the kite that helped freedom fly. In June 1752, Benjamin Franklin sent a kite soaring into a thunderstorm, brought his knuckle near a key that he had tied to the string, and watched a spark leap out. He then proceeded to touch the key to a Leyden jar and charge it, thus proving his theory of, quote, the sameness of electrical matter with that of lightning. That summer, the ever-practical Franklin persuaded the citizens of Philadelphia to erect lightning rods as a means of securing the habitations and other buildings from mischief from thunder and lightning. In his own house, he rigged a lightning rod so that two bells near his bedroom door would ring whenever an approaching storm cloud electrified the rod. Franklin's theories and experiments made him famous in Europe. He corresponded with members of the Royal Society of London. His papers were widely published and translated into French. King Louis XV took a particular interest in his writings about electricity. Little did Franklin know that all this would someday help his countrymen win the American Revolution. In 1776, the colonies desperately needed France's help in their fight against King George. So they sent 70-year-old Benjamin Franklin across the sea to Versailles. The French welcomed the world-famous scientist and philosopher as a hero. Crowds followed him around. Parisians gave balls in his honor. After all, he was the man who had harnessed lightning. Franklin charmed the French and used his reputation to nudge them into aiding the colonies. In 1781, French forces helped George Washington trap the English at Yorktown, Virginia. Without that support, the Patriots may never have prevailed. And that is how Ben Franklin's kite helped Americans win their freedom. Now that's pretty interesting. If you've ever watched the movie The Patriot by Mel Gibson, the British surrender at Yorktown is featured. I know I'm kind of giving away the movie, but seriously, I mean, if you haven't seen it by now, if you're an American patriot and haven't seen it by now, I'm sorry. I can't, I don't have anything for you there. But that was featured, the French coming in with their ships and trapping the British at Yorktown, and of course providing the ultimate surrender at Yorktown, which it eventually won the war. All right. So I have a couple of things tonight. I'm asking the question, are we in a tyranny? And you know, it's sort of interesting. And actually, I want to, before I get into that, I want to address this real quick. Buddy says that he never knew that Franklin went to France. Franklin did go to France. He actually traveled quite a bit as an ambassador. He was one of the first ones to go to some of the African nations, the African continents, and deal with several of those kings and queens over there in what essentially is now considered Eastern Europe and the Middle East areas, like Israel, Turkey, those kinds of places. I won't say that was exactly where he went. I could be wrong exactly where he went. But the point is that yes, he did actually travel quite a bit as an ambassador after the country was formed. And he did go to France and take care of that. That was pretty cool. All right. So I kind of ask if we are in a tyranny. And I've got a few articles that kind of indicate in a certain sense that we are. I also have a list of communist, I think it's 43 or 45 points that were published by a communist in a book, and I'll get to that book here in just a few minutes. And it discusses some of the points that they are saying that have to happen here in the U.S. in order for the Americas to, or the American experiment, let's say, to fall and to set us up for failure. And I'm not going to read through all 40 some odd points, but I am going to pull off a few very apropos ones for here and what's going on in terms of today. But before I get to that, I do have one other thing that I want to read to you real quick. And this actually came to me through my personal account on LinkedIn. And it's kind of an interesting little story because it references dealing with the types of people that we are potentially dealing with right now. So I don't know what it's titled. I honestly, I don't even know where this person got it. So I didn't put anything as far as a link in the chat, but, in the description of the video. But I definitely want to read it to you because it's a very short story, but it's very interesting and apropos for today's climate. The donkey told the tiger, "The grass is blue." The tiger replied, "No, the grass is green." The discussion became heated, and the two decided to submit the issue to arbitration. So they approached the lion. As they approached the lion on his throne, the donkey started screaming, "Your Highness, isn't it true that the grass is blue?" The lion replied, "If you believe it is true, the grass is blue." The donkey rushed forward and continued, "The tiger disagrees with me, contradicts me, and annoys me. Please punish him." The king then declared, "The tiger will be punished with 3 days of silence." The donkey jumped with joy and went on his way, content and repeating, "The grass is blue, the grass is blue, the grass is blue." The tiger asked the lion, "Your Majesty, why have you punished me? After all, the grass is green." The lion replied, "You've known and seen the grass is green." The tiger asked, "So why do you punish me?" The lion replied, "That has nothing to do with the question of whether the grass is blue or green. The punishment is because it is degrading for a brave, intelligent creature like you to waste time arguing with an ass. And on top of that, you came and bothered me with that question just to validate something you already knew was true." The moral of that story is the biggest waste of time is arguing with a fool and a fanatic who doesn't care about truth or reality, but only the victory in his beliefs and illusions. Never waste time on discussions that make no sense. There are people who, for all the evidence presented to them, do not have the ability to understand. Others are blinded by ego, hatred, and resentment, and the only thing that they want is to be right, even if they aren't. When ignorance screams, intelligence moves on. I think that's pretty apropos with a lot of things that are going on in today's world. Unfortunately, though, if we do stay silent, we risk the possibility at this point. We're risking the possibility that the idiots who are squeaking, squawking, and yelling are going to gain and garner all of the attention. So unfortunately, there's going to be outlets like myself, Dan Bongino, Mark Kay, Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, several of those things who are going to take up the mantle and call these people out when they say that the grass is actually blue. I thought you might like that. All right. So we have had several things that have happened this week. And one of the biggest ones, of course, and I don't know if anybody caught this, I think the article that I read came in late on Friday, possibly even this morning. It might have been something that I read. I don't really recall directly, but there is a potential that the Supreme Court could be issuing the decision, the final decision on Monday. Okay. And in particular with regards to the abortion case. Okay. Now we already know, and we've had plenty of conversations about the leaked opinion that has come out. And one of the things that, is sort of interesting about this whole entire situation is the fact that we've had several lawbreakers, and I am going to call them lawbreakers. We've had several lawbreakers who have gone to the Supreme Court justices' homes of Kavanaugh and, not Breyer, Alito, and maybe even Gorsuch, and possibly even Clarence Thomas. They've gone there to protest in front of these homes. Now, you'll know if you've watched this program as well as several other programs, there are several situations where this is not allowed. One of them being based off of Title 18 of United States Code Section 1507, which specifically prohibits parading. And there's one other, and it's escaping me at the moment, but it specifically prohibits going to the justices' homes with the intent of influencing their decision on a court case. And that is exactly what these people are doing by going to these people's homes. And the hard part about all of this is the fact that we have a society that seems to think that this is acceptable. Now, at one point, and believe me, I understand it sort of flies in the face of, the Bill of Rights. It sort of flies in the face of the First Amendment, in particular dealing with the right to peaceably assemble. However, what's interesting about that is that they don't say that you can't assemble and protest. They just say that you can't assemble and protest in front of these people's homes and their place of business, in this case, the Supreme Court, because of the fact that it is designed. And again, this is the whole key, is that it is specifically designed to try and influence the decision. Now, the leaked opinion never should have happened. I'm going to be honest with you. If the leaked had never occurred, we wouldn't be having these protests. And there's even been news articles that have come out where there are people who are trying to gather and they're going to go in front of the Supreme Court at the location of the Supreme Court and in an attempt to protest and change the justices' opinions. Now, I've covered abortion. I've covered where it is actually not part of the Constitution. It is not considered a constitutional right. That the decision that was made that Alito is actually correct in the fact that the Constitution does not have this as a federal government requirement to protect. And that the Supreme Court, when it came out with Roe versus Wade in particular, was overstepping its bounds. It was creating something out of thin air. And Alito, in the leaked opinion, has clearly provided point by point how that is not true. Okay. As of this moment, they still, for whatever reason, our wonderful FBI can, figure out who and when after, some governors, and it figured out all these people who perpetrated or supposedly perpetrated January 6th. But no, we do not know at this moment who leaked it. My assumption is it was a left-wing law clerk, law staffer that leaked it. And I think that's a pretty good assumption considering the phrasing and the direction that the draft opinion was going. But that being the case, the thing about this is that we need to understand that in order for legislators to actually do what they're supposed to do, they need to stay apolitical, meaning that they are not supposed to take positions on anything that they are deciding. And this is one of the challenges that we've had with the radicalization of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court was supposed to be kept separate and had a specific charge to rule on cases and not apply anything more than the Constitution and what they call court precedent at that point. But Alito goes and he puts out this wonderful argument, this wonderful explanation, and it gets leaked. And granted, it's not very favorable for those who are in Roe v. Wade. The biggest challenge that you have to deal with is the fact that the Constitution does not in any way, shape, or form guarantee anything about reproductive rights. In fact, it states in the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, and this is where I've consistently said this on social media. I haven't had anybody necessarily try and fight me on this particular point, but the 10th Amendment clearly states that if a topic, an item, a position is not clearly stated within the Constitution nor clearly prohibited by it, okay, then it's supposed to fall to the states or the people respectively. So in other words, this whole thing, because it's not part of the Constitution, never should have even come into the federal government's hands. Now, unfortunately, it is a hot button topic, and there are a lot of people who cannot separate out their emotions from the responsible side, the logic center of the brain. And so because of this, we have a lot of people who are erring in the whole idea of the decision. I promise you, if you read Samuel Alito's draft, the leaked draft, you'll see, because he lays it out very succinctly, or either that or follow, go back to one of my, I can't remember which episode it was, but go back to one of my other episodes. I covered it and kind of walked through the leaked opinion to discuss a little bit of this. But one of the biggest problems that we have right now in our country, and what's going to kind of wrap this all up, because I'm going a little long, but to sort of wrap this up into the tyrannical part of things, is in a tyranny, in a tyrannical government, you have things like being able, especially one party in particular, being able to do things and get away with it, quote unquote, get away with it in terms of legality. Now, one of the things that has been back and forth, and especially with the January 6th committee that started their televised stuff on Thursday, is with regards to whether or not Donald Trump in particular incited the whole riot that happened on January 6th. Now, if you've watched any, conservative podcast, television, whatever, there have been several Democrat representatives and senators who have made statements that are going after Republicans. For example, Maxine Waters had famously told a group of people that they needed to go to these people's homes, places of businesses. Anytime you see them out and about on the town, you need to get in their face. You need to, yell at them, and you need to tell them that they're not wanted here. Okay. You have had Nancy Pelosi, who has sort of just been like, they're protesting in front of the Supreme Court justices' houses. That's cool. You've had the Squad, who has encouraged a lot of things. You've got even the Vice President, Kamala Harris, who actively bailed out rioters during the summer of 2020, I believe it is, and with Black Lives Matter and everything else. So the left has a serious, consistent history with allowing this lawlessness, allowing this stuff to go on. And one of the things about tyrannical governments is there is no one rule of law that applies equally to both parties. It's always a one-sided affair. And so this, unfortunately, is what's going on. Well, Schumer has joined in on some of that. Back in March, when they first started talking about, in March of 2020, when they first started talking about the Supreme Court taking on the case. Yes, Senator Schumer, it's Schumer, but Senator Schumer, but he says. But one of the things that he did on TV, and you've seen the video, I'm not going to play the video, but I am going to read his quote. And what he said was exactly this. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions. Now, you contrast that with what Trump said, okay? You contrast that with Trump saying we are going to peacefully walk to the Capitol and protest, okay? We are, exercising in that particular case, what Donald Trump was referring to is the right to peaceably assemble and address or request a redress of grievances from our government, both of which are in the First Amendment. And so if Schumer goes and says this, as well as Maxine Waters saying what she said, I would argue. Now, okay, so first of all, I'm just going to take a half step back. Do I think that Chuck Schumer was responsible for the next article in terms of the attempted kidnapping of Kavanaugh or possibly assassination or whatever? Is he responsible for that? No. But he is responsible for making statements like he was making and also saying that protesting in front of the Supreme Court justices' homes, as I've just said, is illegal and is a felony, by the way, in federal statute, as well as in Virginia's state law. It also prevents people from protesting in front of inside neighborhoods. But he is said not once, but twice, he's sort of encouraged, let's say, the breaking of the law. And so this is a senator who is supposed to be have an air of decorum. And what's funny is you take a look at all of the left and all of the times that they have done these things. They've said stuff. They put things on, on TV. They get on the microphone. They do these interviews and they say all these things. And yet the Republicans, while the Republicans may or may not address the issue, they don't even come anywhere near this type of language, to be honest with you. In fact, when the rioting happened and when in terms of January 6th, almost all Republicans, conservatives, they all basically said the same thing. What happened on January 6th was horrible. It was, when you reach out in political violence, this is not what we need to do. This is not who we need to be. And eventually Donald Trump even came out and said, go home. This is not what you want. The riot is enough. We've done what we've wanted to do. We've brought the light to it. Let's go home, etc. I'm paraphrasing, of course. So you have Chuck Schumer, who calls this out in May 4th of 2020. And now you have this other article that I have here, where a California man was charged with attempted murder of a U.S. Supreme Court justice for allegedly making threats against Justice Brett Kavanaugh, showing up near his Maryland home armed. Now, this is the federal court records that show this, okay? Now, supposedly or reportedly, he was angry over the recent mass shooting in Uvalde, and the leaked draft of the Supreme Court's decision that is going to impact Roe v. Wade. Now, you couple that with Charles Schumer, saying what he said, and I would say that you may have a case for bringing Charles Schumer up on, if nothing else, at least incitement charges and possibly even censure or something like that, if we lived in a actual constitutional republic where the rule of law reigns supreme, regardless of who it is. This is an indicator of a tyrannical government when a certain segment of the population can get away with all kinds of law-breaking activities and essentially either receive a slap on the wrist or don't receive anything at all. So we have to ask ourselves, since we've stepped into this, and this is just one incident, but we've stepped into this, have we stepped into tyranny? Have we given up on the rule of law, which, by the way, is a foundational bedrock for America? You know, we can live alongside others, regardless of their skin tone, their sexuality, or whatever, religion, whatever. We can live beside them if we have some sort of common ground to come from. I've mentioned this before. One of those common building blocks that we usually set for a foundation is literally a rule of law, meaning that the laws apply equally to everyone, which is part of our Constitution and part of the idea of the not the supremacy clause, but the it's 14. I think it's the 14th Amendment is what I'm thinking of. But the point that I'm making here is that we are dealing with a society that is breaking down on an almost daily factor here. This is not where we want to be. This is not where we want to live. This is not how we want to live. Because of the fact that we are getting to a point where there is more violence. There is more gun violence going on. There is more political violence going on. I mean, many, many years ago, you wouldn't even, to have an attempt on the president, for an example, was just unheard of. I mean, Ronald Reagan was the last one that I can remember in terms of an actual attempt. Now, I have seen articles that there were attempts done, but they were all hushed and covered up. Of course, the Secret Service did their job. Nothing ever became of them. But the idea that we as a society take away or move away from the very foundation of the rule of law and respect for the law, and that the law is applied equally across both sides or across all peoples, this is where we have a major breakdown in our American values. And all of those things are true with a tyrannical government. A tyrannical government doesn't apply the laws equally. In fact, more often than not, they don't even have laws until they make something up. But the fact of the matter is that we've had this happen. We've had this kind of thing happen. They've ignored the whole thing with the protesting in front of the Supreme Court justices' homes. The Department of Justice has also ignored other things and focused on January 6th. And they're so focused on January 6th, which, albeit, and I said it on this program, was absolutely, disgusting. It was something that never should have happened. Peacefully protesting is fine. The minute that you start breaking into a riot and you start committing acts of violence for political gains, you've already lost the conversation. That's literally where we're at. Okay. But the reality of this is that if we start losing the foundational value of the rule of law, and we've already kind of done that. I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse defended himself and he ended up in jail. He ended up going and doing what he did. You've got Hunter Biden and he's, by the way, he's suing. He's actually, I think Facebook is the first one on his list for suing for defamation. That'll be interesting to watch and see. But you have Hunter Biden, who is on camera. He has had illegal weapons. He's dropped it in a garbage can. He is, shooting up heroin. He's, smoking it. Well, I don't know what he does. I mean, he's just doing drugs, period, hardcore drugs. And yet he's getting a completely free pass at this point. You have, the Epstein, situation where, Jeffrey Epstein, there's no little black book. Where are all the people's and whose names are in that book? Where is their justice? Where is it that they're going to get justice for what happened to them? Same thing with Ghislaine Maxwell. You have, even Joe Biden, as an example, is suggested that he was part of a quid pro quo scenario where he was doing favors for foreign entities. That's literally treason. Why is he not on the chopping block? And it's because of the fact that we have moved on from the idea that justice is blind and equal to both sides. We also have Clinton. Thank you, buddy, for pointing this out. We also have Clinton lying to the FISA court to gain falsified wiretaps and things like that to spy on an incoming president and his regime. So we have some serious problems, serious issues, in particular with the whole idea of the rule of law, and that's tyrannical. We already know that they're trying to silence conservative voices. They're trying to also take away our guns, even though they sit there and say, no, this is all for protection. This is all for protection. The Second Amendment clearly states that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's been continually infringed upon for many, many years. It's not about hunting. It's about protection, self-protection, number one, because as I've stated on many of my social media platforms, when police are called and are when seconds count, police are minutes away. So when seconds count, police, you have to call them, they have to get there, so on and so forth. The only person that is responsible for your defense is you. And so all of these things are starting to align with what I would say we being in a tyranny, because one of the first things that Hitler did, one of the first things that China has done, all tyrannical governments and regimes, you can look at Venezuela. One of the first things they do is they take away the people's right to keep and bear arms, to protect themselves, because of the fact that they want to be able to take away your other rights, and they don't want you to have the ability to fight back. This is a problem. Now, another thing that tyrannical governments do is they attack their political enemies. And this is something that I don't think a lot of people really have noted, because of the fact, first of all, the whole attempt on Kavanaugh's life has not been necessarily put out in the mainstream media that much. In fact, the story itself, at one point I heard a reference that January 6th and other things were like the top articles on this particular left-wing mainstream media outlet site, and the Kavanaugh attempted murder of Kavanaugh was actually like number 39 in the list of top stories. This is propaganda. The mainstream media is very good at propaganda. We've seen this. They've been caught lying about the Hunter Biden laptop, saying that it was a Russian plant. It's not. It's been proven that it is actually his. Some of the emails have been proven, even by the left wing, they are his and they are legit. So how can you have something that's legit, but not all things from that same source being legit? I have no idea. But the point is that the mainstream media covered it up. The tech giants covered it up right before when it broke by the New York Post in October. That's propaganda. That's what a tyrannical government does. Everything is all roses and sunshine when it actually isn't. They try to tell you that you have all of these rights and freedoms and everything is cool. Everything is great. It's all unicorns until the truth comes out and you don't. This is how a tyrannical government runs. This is how tyranny runs. And the mainstream media is sensationalizing January 6th, which again is a, it was a horrible incident, but I wouldn't put it on par with some of the other things that they like to compare it to. It was a moment of weakness in the part of some people. It potentially could have been set up. We don't know. There are several questions that have not been asked that, some of the Republican representatives who were nominated to be a part of that committee, and Nancy Pelosi just shunned them in favor of a couple of people, Adam Kurtzinger and Liz Cheney, because Nancy Pelosi knew that those two hated Trump and would move on. Well, we found out on Thursday that the course that they plan to set for this committee, which again, in my last episode, I kind of pointed out that this is not a committee that is designed to go after criminals. That's not what committees are for Congress. Going after criminals is law enforcement's job. That's part of the executive branch, not the legislative. The legislative branch convenes committees to figure out whether or not a particular law needs to be rewritten, changed, modified, whatever, whether or not, budgets were spent appropriately, those kinds of things. They are not designed for doing a criminal prosecution, which is exactly what this January 6th committee is doing. It is illegal. They have no investigative power, as Buddy just told me. Let me go ahead and give him credit. The House of Representatives has no investigative power because, again, that is on the side of the executive branch. That has nothing to do with legislation. And so this entire January 6th committee is completely a sham. It is a sham kangaroo court. This is part of the reason why people don't want to go and testify in front of it. This is why there's been so much fighting against it. But one of the things that has come out of January 6th, which again, just the simple fact of January 6th even happening and it's not being bipartisan, again, it's more of a partisan committee. One of the things that has come out from January 6th, very, very quickly, I might add, since the announcement of the Thursday public, quote unquote, public hearing, was this. And I know I haven't done this lately, but I'm going to go ahead and pop this up. I had the other articles up. I just never showed you them. But take a look at this. The FBI goes and arrests a Republican gubernatorial candidate, Ryan Kelly, supposedly over the January 6th riot. Now, first of all, I need to remind you guys, the FBI has actually been proven and shown to have been a key instigator of the whole Governor Whitmer attempted kidnapping plot. So the FBI's informants and the FBI itself fostered this whole idea of Governor Whitmer in Michigan being kidnapped, potentially to go and get killed. And this was back in 2020, 2019, I think. But a lot of these articles that talk about that, a lot of left-wing pundits, they're not even mentioning that. But this This is just because this person was there. Now, whether or not this individual actually participated in some of the violence that happened and some of the destruction of property there, I don't know that right now. All I know is that he was arrested and look at this right here in the thing. He was arrested on misdemeanor charges. For his participation in the, quote, deadly January 6th Capitol riot. And I say deadly only because only one person actually died on that day, was Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by a Capitol Police lieutenant. There was another death that occurred after the fact. Brian Sicknick, I think was his name. He was the police officer who died of unrelated health issues a couple of days later. And there was one other person who got severely injured in the tunnel down below. But the thing about it is that the weaponization that has occurred of the Department of Justice, the IRS, back in the Obama years, these are hallmarks of tyrannical governments and tyrannical regimes. You go after your political opponents. You attack your political opponents, and you possibly even arrest them when you can. This is an example of going after somebody, and they tried to do it with MTG, by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene, in Georgia. They tried to get her off the ballot. And thankfully the courts there said, no, that's not the case. And we're going to go ahead and put them, keep her on the ballot. Not saying anything about her record or, her effectiveness as a representative. But the fact of the matter is that these people, these supposed leaders, are weaponizing institutions against American people. I showed you in one of my other episodes, I showed you where the FISA warrants were actually being used to spy on Americans. That's not what's supposed to happen. And the whole thing with Mike Flynn and getting outed, that was an attack. The two things that have gone after the way they've gone after Donald Trump in terms of the two impeachment hearings, and even with January 6th today, whose admittedly sole purpose is to go after Donald John Trump to keep him from running in 2024. This is signs of tyranny. We are in tyranny. And I could keep going on and explain a bunch of other things that have happened, but these are signs of tyrannical governments. Okay? These are signs of a tyrannical government and tyrannical individuals within our government itself, and is going after these people. The whole idea that the DOJ would also state that parents, we're talking parents, going to their school board meetings to air grievances. Again, there's that redress of grievances up in the First Amendment. They're going to these school board meetings and they're talking about things that they don't want their kids taught. Whether it's CRT, whether it's sexualizing our kids, whether it's, talking about gender transitioning and gender ideology, and some of the books that are in the classroom libraries and things for age appropriate behavior. They've gone after Ron DeSantis for his choices and his signing of laws into the what they called the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, which is basically not don't say gay. It never even said don't say gay in it. But they went ahead and they weaponized the mainstream media against it because of the fact that they are trying to get rid of their political opponents. These are all indicators of a tyrannical government and a tyrannical force trying to go after us. The You're talking the 1619 Project, I think, buddy. Wait. Yes, there it is. 1619 Project, where they try to rewrite history. I'll get to that in just a second. So these are all signs. Everything that we're talking about are signs of complete tyranny. This is sad. Totally sad. For those of you who grew up in the 70s and 80s and understood what America was all about, especially when Ronald Reagan was in play. Oh my gosh, Ronald Reagan, I think, was probably the greatest president of modern times. And to be completely honest with you, I think he even smoked Donald Trump. I've said this before. Donald Trump was a good president. Reagan was a great president. Okay. However, we're dealing with a tyrannical government right now. We're dealing with a group of people, and they're not only just weaponizing against themselves or using their own institutions to do it. We've already seen and heard that they're using big tech to go after conservatives. They go after us because of the fact that we are speaking the truth. We are speaking the truth. So I ran across this one other thing. I'm just going to throw this out as we start to round out the hour. And I mentioned this about the communist goals. And there's 45 in this list. I actually got this off of a social media post. It states in here that the list appeared in the Congressional Record of January 10th, 1963. Now, I did not actually track that down, but I'm sure somebody can. They were supposedly taken from The Naked Communist by W. Cleon Skousen, who began his extensive study of communism during his 16-year term of service with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And Mr. Skousen, Skousen, is now the field director of the American Security Council. I don't think that's correct because, again, this was taken back in 1963. I would guess that he's long been retired. But I wanted to bring this up, and let me show this to you. But I wanted to bring it up because there's a couple of things in here that are really apropos to today, and also apropos to what we have already gone through in history. So the first one, number one, is U.S. acceptance of coexistence as the only alternative to atomic war. Now, keep in mind, this was published in 1963. So this is in regards to the Cold War. That was something that we talked about, or that we dealt with, was dealing with the Cold War and trying to create a détente and so on and so forth. That was a communist goal, apparently back in 1963. It was their number one communist goal in 1963. But one of the ones that I wanted to bring up to you, and I've got to find it here. Let me make sure that I'm doing. Okay. So 24, way down here toward the bottom, and I'm sorry I can't highlight it, but I'll bring it in here closer. So 24, right here. Eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. Now, this is interesting because this is actually opposite of what they're trying to do right now. However, it is kind of interesting how they might be manipulating what's going on here for this. And then let's go up to the top and go to this side over here, 25. This is actually happening even right now. We can see it. Number 25 is break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, and TV. We've relaxed our standards. We've relaxed what is considered acceptable in our world. If you look at what's happening today, we have relaxed that. The FCC nowadays, I mean, you can do things on TV that wouldn't have happened back in the 1970s, for an example. Number 26, present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, and healthy. Now think about this. They're presenting these things as being normal, natural, and healthy. That's exactly what we're seeing today. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, as far as I'm concerned, whatever you do in the bedroom, that is entirely up to you. But the thing about it is that if you try or you're attempting to change society's views of these things, this is where the problem comes into play. You have to understand that we have what is supposed to be a common foundation, like I stated before, to work from. Okay? 27, infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with social religion. Discredit the Bible and emphasize the need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch. Now think about that for just a second. When we're dealing with things that we have situations now where it's an attack on Christianity. Dan Bongino's last episode, you can check it out on Rumble. He goes through this. This is yesterday's episode. And he talks a lot about the attack on Christianity. Whether you agree with it or not, America was founded in Judeo-Christian values. Our founding is Judeo-Christian, period. There is no other question about it. The Bible was the number one referenced book in the creation of both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. Okay. That being said, it would behoove the communists to try and get rid of that, for us to go against all that. If you see, they're talking about discrediting the Bible, and they're emphasizing the need for intellectual maturity, meaning that if you don't believe in the ghost, they say, then you are intellectually higher. You are more enlightened by not believing in God. Okay. Number 28 here is eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools on the ground that it violates the principle of separation of church and state. I've told you this before. I've said it before. I'll say it again. The idea of separation of church and state only has to deal with a state-sponsored religion. There is nothing in the Constitution. There was nothing that the framers actually stated that essentially said that the church and the state cannot commingle on things, or that you can't have religious values as part of state laws. This is the fallacy that they've put forth about the separation of church and state. Check this out. This is number 29. Discredit the American Constitution by calling it inadequate, old-fashioned, and out of step with modern needs, a hindrance to cooperation between nations on a worldwide basis. We have recently had two major issues that have come up with in regards to this. Number one is the fact of the whole gun control idea, okay? That the Second Amendment was applied to muskets. No, it applied to whatever arms were available at the time, because whether people know it or not, an automatic was actually invented by then. It just wasn't popularized throughout the country. They hadn't gone that way. Things like owning cannons, like Joe Biden is happily proud to say, oh, you couldn't own a cannon back then. Well, that's actually crap. You could own a cannon. You can still own a cannon today. You just may have to, if it's functional, you may have to jump through a few hoops and pay a tax as a part of the, the NFA, I think is what they call it. But you still can own one. I mean, you can have one today. All right. Here's number 30. Discredit the American founding fathers. Present them as selfish aristocrats who had no concern for the common man. I'm guessing that's coming. Okay, if it hasn't already been sort of hidden within some of the messages, that's coming. 31. Belittle all forms of American culture and discourage the teaching of American history on the ground that it was only a minor part of the big picture. give more emphasis to Russian history in particular because the communists took over. Now, this is where the 1619 Project falls in, because 1619 was a rewriting of American history and rewriting of American culture, and it was focused on this as, well, the American founding fathers, again, didn't do all of the wonderful things that they did. And, you know, America was actually founded in 1619 instead. Okay. These are problems. These are issues that we really need to pay attention to. These are things that are happening in our world today. This is what's going on in today's society. And hey, check this out. Here's number 35. Discredit and eventually dismantle the FBI. Well, we're already in the discrediting phase. They've already had, you know, discrediting because of the well, like I just said, the whole Gretchen Whitmer thing in Michigan. Okay. Infiltrate and gain control of the unions. Infiltrate and gain control of big business. Okay. Here's one. What did we, 38. Check this one out. Transfer some of the powers of arrest from the police to social agencies. Treat all behavioral problems as psychiatric disorders, which no one but psychiatrists can understand or treat. Okay, what's the whole defund the police idea? Defunding the police and putting in social workers. Here it is, number 38 on their list of things to do in order to bring down the American behemoth. This is, number 40. Discredit the family as an institution. Encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. This is happening here today, people. All of these things that I'm reading to you that have popped up are happening today. Some of these on this list, and I'm not going to continue because I'm running out of time here, but some of these things are already in place. Some of these things are already occurring. They've already been able to implement some of the things on this list. We need to stand up and retake our country. We need to retake our culture. We need to do things that will re-emphasize American values, America foundational values, the rule of law, the family unit, the belief in Judeo-Christian values, the whole idea that justice is blind and both sides have an equal chance at these things. These are all things that we need to start focusing on, and we need to pressure our senators, our representatives. We need to get the people in who are going to follow the Constitution in a strict manner that will actually abide by their oath to support and defend the Constitution. These are all things that we need to do moving forward. We cannot trust that just anybody is going to be able to do this. We've watched our society break down and fall apart up until now. And as you can see, it's all part of a plan that was put together way back in 1963. And that is my final Whiskey Musings thought for the evening. Do me a favor, if you like the show, if you like what I'm putting together for you, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I prefer if you would subscribe on Rumble, but I have picked up some subscribers on YouTube. I will continue to transmit on YouTube as long as I am allowed to. If they decide to kick me off, that's them. And you can just come on over to Rumble. The Rumble chat room is very active. So come on over there when I transmit. And once again, remember, next week, the 18th, there will be no broadcast because I will be pulled away doing family duties. But I will have a broadcast Wednesday night. We'll see you next time on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everybody, and have a great weekend.